Doctor Who, Made of Steel by Terrance. Read by Cameron Wilkingson. Chapter 1. The Raiders. The Megatech Centre was first to be here. It was the biggest and best computer and electronics store in Britain, possibly in the world. A big modern showroom in the heart of London's West End. Inside, it was all glass and steel, packed with everything from bog standard PCs to the latest MP3 player. Megatech advertised everywhere. Press, telly, internet, mail-ins. Upgrade today, limited offer, lowest prices ever, buy now. And buy they did. Monday to Saturday, 8 AM to 6 PM. Customers flooded in, prowling display stands and shelves, grabbing overworked assistants, spending all they could afford and more. Anything to keep up with their precious computers and electronic gadgets up to date. Even though up to date would be out of date by next week. Megatech reckoned to cope with any kind of customer, but not the ones who arrived at 3 AM one morning. The vast showroom and the storerooms behind were dark and silent by then. Only a few dim lights were working. Old Trevor, retired policeman and senior night watchman, sat in his chair by the main door, with vermouths and sandwiches by his side. Kevin, his assistant, was off somewhere, checking the storeroom. Kevin was keen, so let him go on with it. Trevor knew that Megatech was protected by the finest alarm system in the world. If anybody as much as breathed hard on any of the outer doors and windows, bells would ring, sirens would howl, lights would flash, and linked alarms would go off in a local cop shop. Technology was there to make a man's life easier. Let it do its job. Trevor poured strong, sweet tea into his cup of the thermos, unwrapped his sandwiches and took a bite of cheese and onion. Suddenly, the air seemed to shimmer in front of him. He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Maybe he put that overdue eye test too long. He replaced his glasses. Instead, a light of circle of light, was forming in the centre of the showroom floor. As its centre appeared a shimmering metallic figure, slowly, it became solid. The thing was terrifying. It was more or less a man-shaped, but much bigger than any man. The head carried a sort of crest, with a strange handle-like attachments, and the face was terrifying, blank steel mask. Trevor jumped to his feet, dropping his sandwich and spilling his tea. "Eerie!" he shouted feebly. The metallic figure raised an arm, and a gun barrel clicked into place at his wrist, and his repulses of scarlet light flashed out, and Trevor staggered back and crumbled to the floor. A second, identical figure shimmered into existence beside the first. Ignoring Trevor's body, the steel figures moved out of the circle. They began moving among the display cases. Some they passed, others were shattered with a sweeping blow of the powerful metal fist. The contents of some of the cases were carried to the circle of light and stacked inside. In the storeroom, Kevin heard the sound of shattering glass. Drawing his only weapon, a truncheon, I think that's called, he ran towards the sound. He stopped in the doorway of the showroom, staring around in disbelief. Trevor's sprawled body smashed display cases, two huge silver shapes moving among them. The nearest of the giant figures turned and saw him. Kevin turned and ran, and the gleaming figure stretched out a metal arm. Scarlet light pulses flashed again. Kevin spun around and fell. The silver figure strode past him into the storeroom. Next day, the official police statement spoke of a well-organised robbery by a well-equipped and highly professional gang. Some things were not mentioned or explained. Both showroom and storeroom had been looted of the latest high-tech equipment, yet the alarm system had failed to go off. even though it was found to be in the perfect working order. The deaths of 2 security guards were equally mysterious. No one seemed to know quite what had killed them. The post-mortem revealed only a massive shock to the system caused by a force of unknown origin. The second guard, younger and stronger than the first, had still been alive, just when found. He died in hospital a few hours later, muttering about silver giants. There was no reference to this in the official accounts. The second attack took place in the heart of Whitehall itself, the secret research lab behind the Ministry of Science, a building so secure that it was often described as a giant safe, was attacked and robbed. Most of the night's staff were left dead. The only survivor, a research assistant, babbled about giant silver figures stalking among the ruins. He was immediately moved to a secure sanctuary. A search revealed that highly secret equipment were missing, including top-grade surveillance gear and a state-of-the-art decoder machine. The sign on the heavy metal gate read, Chadwick Green, Her Majesty's Government Research and Development Centre, strictly no admittance without pass. It was the small hours of the morning, nearing the end of a cold and damp night. The rain had stopped, replaced by an icy wind. The harsh light of the arc lamps surrounding the campus shone down on the wet parade ground, and the huddle of barracks, storerooms and the labs on the other side. The sentry on duty at the main gates was Dexter Hanson. He was tired, bored and fed up. He wanted hot tea and a warm bed, and he wanted to see his girl, who worked in the pub in the village. He suspected she was also seeing Corporal Harris, and when he got off duty, Hanson was going to have it out with her. He glanced at his watch. Only half an hour till he'd be relieved. He decided on a bit of a stamp to warm himself up and vent his frustration and anger. As he swung around to begin his march, Hanson saw a giant silver figure already inside the gates. It was stalking towards the row of lab buildings on the other side of the parade ground. For a moment, Hanson stared in disbelief. Then he yelled, "You there! Halt or I fire!" The figure whirled around, raising an arm in a pointed position. Hanson was a combat veteran. He'd seen action in both Iraq and Afghanistan. He reached instinctively, hurling himself aside to the ground. The energy blast missed. Springing to one knee, Hanson raised his automatic rifle and fired shot after shot into the silver figure. It ignored the attack and fired again. Dexter Hanson screamed, twisting in agony, and fell lifeless to the ground. The shots had alerted the camp, and a shirt-sleeved corporal ran out to the guardhouse, blazing away with an automatic pistol. The giant silver fired at once, blasting him down. A second silver figure appeared beside the first, and 2 began to march towards the row of buildings. A general alarm blared out. The alarmed men began to emerge from all sides. The silver giants were hit by hail of bullets, but the weapons had no effect. One by one, the soldiers were ruthlessly shot down. An armoured car sped up towards the intruders. It had a heavy mounted machine gun, which was piping out bullets. Both metal figures fired at once, and the vehicle exploded in flames. They resumed their march. They reached the door of the nearest lab building and effortlessly smashed it down. Chapter 2. Field Trip. "Steady now," said the doctor. "Take it slowly. It's a timid creature. It's probably more frightened of you than you are it. Really." He grinned. "No offence. None taken." "And who's frightened?" said Martha, definitively. "I mean, it's only a flipping, giant, prehistoric monster the size of a house." She noticed he held up a bunch of juicy green palm fronds to the giant creature towering above her. Martha Jones was the doctor's current companion, a medical student. She had met the doctor when terrifying alien forces had invaded the hospital where she was training. When it was all over, she had accepted his offer of just one trip. Somehow, that one trip had become the first of many. Now they were standing outside the TARDIS, at the edge of a clearing, in the middle of a lush prehistoric jungle. The air was hot and steamy, filled with the cries of strange and no doubt savage creatures. The doctor had fished out a battered bundle-like object and had used it to produce a weird, high-pitched sound. Works like a duck call, he explained. On a slightly larger scale, obviously. Pills animals slightly larger than ducks too, which is useful, because there aren't any ducks yet. Here we go! And sure enough, an enormous creature had lunged out of the jungle and towards him. It had stumpy legs, a vast, bulky body, and a tiny head on the end of an incredibly long neck. Suddenly, the tiny head smacked down and snatched the palm fronds from Martha's hand. Martha looked up. The dinosaur as it munched away above her. You sure he won't want me for afters? Oh, you'll be alright, the doctor assured her. It's a Pataphorus, strictly vegetarian. Well, almost strictly. He paused to consider. Well, nearly almost. Perhaps it's vegetarian to eat. Now, if I'd call up a pterodactyl, or even better, T-Rex. As he spoke, Martha felt the ground shake beneath her feet. A huge shadow fell over them. The Apatosaurus gave a shrill scream of terror, wheeled around and lumbered away with surprising speed. But Martha wasn't watching. She and the doctor both turned to see the enormous creature behind them. It was so tall that its head was bottling out the sun. A massive, brutal shape silhouetted against the sky. Did I say even bigger? The doctor wondered out loud. Might not have meant that exactly. As the monstrous head tipped rapidly towards him, the doctor grabbed Martha's hand and dragged her inside the TARDIS. The creature's sharp, jagged teeth clashed on the empty space where Martha had been standing a moment before. Seconds later, the TARDIS faded away. The Tyrannosaurus miner's jaws again snapped shut on an empty space, or almost empty. On the spot where the TARDIS had vanished, the air shimmered. A square shape began to form. Safely back inside the TARDIS, the doctor said, Sorry about that. Maybe we better stick to watching David Attenborough in future. Though, I don't think he did dinosaurs. Not that up close anyways. So, he went on brightly, where to now? I think I've had enough excitement for one day, Martha told him. Somewhere peaceful? Home? No, not home. That's never peaceful. She thought again. How about work? Hospital? Martha went on. The good old Royal Hope. I don't see how everyone's doing it. Last time I was there, I got kidnapped. Been there, done that, the doctor said. Kidnapped hospital? No problem. Soon sorted. Hold on tight then. Here we go. Chapter 3. Crisis Conference. The research centre at Chadwick Green seemed to be back to normal. The Army Corps' well of emergencies, wrecked huts and buildings, had been removed and rebuilt, and smashed or stolen equipment had been replaced. A huge team of army engineers, working day and night, had dug out a new security vault, a vast underground chamber of steel and concrete walls. It was designed to protect top-secret equipment from any future attack. Human problems had been tackled with equal speed and efficiency. Dead soldiers, scientists and research assistants had all been replaced. The families of those in the raid were given the Army's deepest sympathy, and fictional reports of the training accidents and specific disasters hid the truth. There were few details for security reasons, of course. Relatives of all casualties were offered general compensation in return for silence and no fuss. Near the entrance of the vault was the security section. This housed the communication centre, air-conditioned, brightly lit, and packed with all the latest equipment. Major John Burton, Chief Security Officer, and his number 2, Captain Sheila Chardon, sat before a giant screen, glooming, watching for what seemed like 100th time grainy black and white CCTV footage of silver giant figures stalking among shattered display cases. The attack on Megatech Center. They made an oddly contrasting pair. Burton was a massive figure, rather brutal features. His looks weren't improved by a squished ear and flattened nose. In his younger days, he both boxed and played rugby for the army. He looked heavy, dull, and rather stupid. But in Tom Burton's case, the looks were misleading. A rugby thug with a brain like Einstein. His commandant-general I'd once call him. Sheila Sarandon was younger and slimmer, a severely beautiful blonde. She was equally bright and fiercely ambitious. The army was still largely a man's world. She knew that. To succeed, she had to just not be as good as, but better than, her fellow officers. Tom Burton was well aware that she was after his job, not that it worried him. The way that he felt at the moment, she was welcome to it. He switched off the projector, stood up and stretched. Doesn't tell us much, does it? It tells us the same as the ministry footage. And our own staff, sir, said Sheila. The Cybermen are back. I thought they were wiped out. To be honest, our record isn't too brilliant when it comes to the Cybermen, said Sheila. Sergeant Scruffily. The Cybermen actually had a hidden base inside the old torture tower on Canary Wharf before the big invasion, and there was a breakout somewhere after the battle. Vital alien equipment was stolen, including advanced spying equipment and something believed to be an alien teleportation device, said Barton irritably. And now all of this more advanced equipment stolen from Megatech? The Science Ministry and here? What we don't know is why. What are they up to? The planet's some operation, said Tula. Something big. Another invasion, perhaps? We've only 2 of them. 2's all we've seen so far. There may be a whole army hidden somewhere. That's a cheerful thought, said Burton gloomily. Got to face facts, sir, Sheila went on. I'm wondering if we should come clean, warn the public. Burton shook his head. Out of the question. The invasion and the final battle are too recent. Any hint of it happening again, there'd be a nationwide panic. Worldwide panic. We've got to contain the story. We can't just keep a lid on this forever. We can hold it down for a little while longer. Burton slapped a pile of folders on his desk. The relatives of these casualties are squared away. The press and TV are under strict embargo. Can't stop the gossip and rumour, sir, said Sheila, obstinately. There are already scare stories out there on the internet. Just a wacky bunch of conspiracy nuts, said Burton. No one's going to pay any attention to them. We've got to keep things quiet until we know what's really going on. The raid on this camp makes it a military intelligence problem, Captain Sergeant, and it will be sorted by military intelligence. By us. Sheila Sarandon thought the old joke about military intelligence being a contradiction in terms, but she was too well disciplined to say out loud. Burton picked up a folder from his desk. It was marked top secret. According to official reports, he told her, the whole thing was cleared up by his character codenamed the Doctor, the one who apparently works out the old blue police box. Maybe we should put an alert out for him, said Sheila. Asked the cops to keep a lookout for an Asian police box and a skinny bloke in a pinstripe suit. She said it as a joke, but Burns seemed to take the suggestion seriously. That's not a bad idea, Sheila. Get onto it right away. The way things are at the moment, anything's worth a try. She looked up at him to see if he was winding her up and decided he wasn't. Very good, sir, she said, and picked up the phone. Chapter 4. Homeward Bound. Martha Jones paced around Todd's console, glancing occasionally at the Doctor as he studied a few rows of dials and readouts. Now that return to the Royal Hope was approaching. She was feeling strangely nervous. How would her old friends feel about seeing her again? How did she feel about him? How much longer, Doctor? He answered without looking up. Oh, any minute now. I should think, probably. Shouldn't you be steering or something? You reckon? He frowned, and the frown became a teasing grin. No need for that. I preset the coordinates. Yes, but wherefore? Ancient Rome, World War V. Oh, Martha. He ran around the console and clapped his hands on her shoulders. Have a bit of faith, a bit of confidence. You may still have the occasional blip, the very... very occasional blip or burp. Wake up. He thrust his hands to his trouser pockets and kicked his feet as if embarrassed. Then he hiccuped, making her laugh out loud. And, alright, there's this unlucky business with Mount Vesuvius, he went on. But be fair, by and large, the TARDIS is pretty reliable these days. I only had to use the hammer twice in the last few trips. We've been thinking of fixing the chameleon circuit. He was nodding excitedly as if to prove this was true. The only trouble is, when the circuit was working, I could never find the thing again. I mean, if you can't remember where the TARDIS has changed into. He was back at the console now, staring down at the same set of tiles. Martha had no idea what he was on about. She decided not to ask and change the subject. What's so fascinating about those dials anyway? Doctor straightened up. Oh, goodness knows. Do you know? I don't know. Right. I started picking up some strange readings as soon as we reached your sector of space-time. What kind of readings? All sorts of stuff. Energy spires, transmit signatures, Radio 5 Live. Maybe someone's using a teleportation device. How much? Or radio? Digital radio? At last, something I do understand. Or circular dissemination. Martha shook her head. No, gone again. Matter transmission, the instant movement of objects from one place to another. Well, I say objects. Could be people, even buildings, like a hospital. Bit of a clue there. Did you spot that? Yeah, got that, thanks. So, what about it? For starters, it's impossible, said the doctor sternly. At least, it ought to be. Technology hasn't even been invented in your time. Maybe someone's invented it, suggested Martha. Some mad scientist again. Unlikely, said the doctor, frowned. But there might be a more worrying explanation. Such as? Someone's using alien technology. Possibly, he decided. An alien. They sort of go together, I find. Oh no, said Martha. Not another invasion. What's this time? Giant hippos? Intelligent wildebeest? Alien llama, maybe? Not all of these ghastly metal men. I couldn't go through all that again. The doctor smiled reassuringly. Don't worry, wherever it is, isn't Cybermen. Cybermen were all stuck inside the void. I doubt it's llamas either. Actually, maybe they grow out again. The Cybermen. Impossible. The gap into the void is sealed. Sealed forever. Can never be reopened. Never. His doctor smile faded, and just for a moment, he looked incredibly sad. If it could be. What? What's the matter, Doctor? Before the doctor could reply, the TARDIS console gave a series of discreet pings. We arrived, said the doctor, brightly. Showtime. He touched the door controls and peered cautiously outside. Well, it doesn't look like much of a circus. Maximus in ancient Rome. Martha decided. Martha followed the doctor out of the TARDIS and looked around. A stretch of windswept tarmac, rows and rows of cars, everything from consultants, Rolls Royce to medical students, old bangers, a big white building in the distance. Martha gave the doctor an impulsive hug. Oh, well done, Doctor, spot on. Royal Hope Hospital car park. Of course, said the doctor modestly. Where else? Behind his back, he uncrossed his fingers. Come on then, said Martha eagerly. I introduce you to all my mates. The doctor shook his head. Better not. Some of them might remember me. Best to avoid any awkward questions. How do I do that? Oh, I don't think you have too much trouble. When people are faced with the unbelievable, they tend to react by not believing it, even when they've seen it with their own eyes. You're a funny lot, you humans. So what are you going to do? I'll have a wander around, get the feel of things, and meet you back here in a couple of hours. Enjoy your reunion. He gave her a quick smile and strode away in the direction of the busy streets. Hey, Martha called after him. Pay and display. Make sure you get a ticket or they'll... She broke off and looked at the TARDIS parked neatly between two cars. They will clamp you, she murmured. Mama watched in disappointment as the doctor walked off into the distance. She'd be looking forward to showing him off to all her friends. Still, that was the doctor for you. Hard to pin down. Just when you thought you were best mates, he'd wandered off. Perhaps it wasn't really all that surprising. If sometimes the doctor acted unexpectedly, most of the time he looked so much like a skinny geek that was hard to remember that he was an incredibly ancient alien. Better to make the best of it. She headed towards the hospital. Sometime later, a young police constable began patrolling the car park, but there had been several cases of theft from cars, even a late-night mugging, and the hospital authorities had insisted that something must be done. PC Jim Wilkin was that something. He was a keen young officer, just out of his probation period, and he took his job very seriously, unlike some of his colleagues. He studied and memorised all officer messages and orders. Today, for instance, the administrator requested to give an eye out for an old wooden police box. PC Wilkins stopped abruptly, halfway along a row of parked cars. Gordon Bennett, he thought. There it is! A blue wooden box, and to prove it, over the door were the words written, police box. A notice on the door read, Police telephone, free for use of public, advice and assistance, obtainable immediately, officer and cars, respond to all calls, pulled open. Those were the days for PC Wilkie. He tapped the personal radio in his breast pocket. Imagine having to find a blue box before you could call for backup. He pulled at the door of the police box but refused to budge. Can't expect it to still be in service, thought Wilkie. He called the station on his radio. Sarge, you know that the call to look out for an old police box? You won't believe this. We've just spotted it in the Royal Hope car park. He walked slowly all round the box, squeezing past the cars, and it hasn't got a ticket. The desk sergeant sighed, put down his mug of tea, and noted down Wilkie's report. Well done, son. I'll pass it on. Keep an eye on the box. Wilkie's voice crackled out of the intercom. What for, Sergeant? In case someone drives it away. The desk sergeant picked up the phone, called Central Intelligence Clearing, where the request had come from, and relayed Wilkie's report. They passed it on to whoever was interested. Weird business, he thought. Maybe someone pinched it from a museum. He took another swig of his tea. Chapter 5. Cyberman. In a vast, shadowy dome, a tall silver figure stood over a complex muddle of electronic equipment. Crates holding more equipment were stacked all around. Nearby, a second enormous figure worked on a smaller installation with a large monitor screen at its centre. A network of cables fed the equipment with power routed from the London electricity grid. A third figure, the cyber leader, supervised the work of the other two. The work goes slowly. The cyber leader's voice was harsh, metallic, with a strange fluttering quality. He turned to the first Cyberman. Is the force field operational? The force field is in place, cyber leader. And the monitor? The Cyberman by the screen spoke in the same flat voice. The monitor is functional. If he comes, it will detect his alien form. Report on the teleportation device. It is functional, but its reliability is impaired. It must be reliable. The device is vital to us if we are to gather equipment for the final plan. The first Simon spoke. We do not have the scientific knowledge to carry out the final plan. Without that knowledge, the equipment is useless. The second Simon said. The raids must be attracting human attention. Their forces will be seeking us. The first Simon carried on the gloomy chorus. The humans will notice the power losses from this base. We cannot conceal them forever. In time, we will use them to track us down. We are too few. We cannot defeat them. In a calm, passionless voice from the cyber leader said, all you say is true. Our plan has a small chance of success, but it is the only plan we have. We must carry it out to the end. We will survive. The first Simon said, only the one who closed the void has the knowledge to reopen it. The second Simon said, the one who closed the void is not here. He escaped from us. He will return, said the cyber leader. We are attacking this planet. He has an emotional attachment to this planet. There is his weakness. He will hear of the attacks and return. Suddenly a series of high-pitched beeps came from the monitor. A tiny point of light was pulsing on the screen. He has returned, said the first Cyberman. Find precise location. That will be difficult. It must be done. For our plan to work, we need the doctor. Hands in pockets, the doctor wandered through the busy network of streets around the hospital. The rain had cleared up, the wind had dropped, but it was a pleasant sunny morning, and somewhere, something mysterious was going on. That's what he liked about Earth. It was as unpredictable as the weather. There was something very odd about those teleportation signals. He found himself in a busy little street, lined with bookshops and cafes. One of the cafes bore a sign, Nick's Internet Cafe. Ah, said the doctor out loud. Perfect. It was a small, fairly scruffy place. A glass-topped counter with a coffee machine behind it. Beyond, a double row of computers, a handful of using them. Behind the counter stood Nick himself, a small, thin, sad-looking man with a straggly goatee beard. He looked at the doctor and said, mournfully, time? The doctor nodded, yes, well, that's the big question, isn't it? Time. You know, what I always say, time will tell. You have no idea how often that turns out to be the case. He beamed at the owner, cafe owner. Nick sighed, how long? Yeah, well, that's another one, isn't it? He sucked air from out of his teeth. How long indeed? Who knows? From here to eternity, you know? Newton would say, he frowned. I'm sorry. What was the question again? Nick was used to eccentrics. How long on the computer? He asked patiently. Oh, about an hour should do. £2. Cappuccino? Definitely. Another £2. The doctor searched through his pockets and eventually gathered together enough loose change to pay for his cappuccino and his computer time. Nick pointed. That one there, end of the row. The doctor carried his coffee over to the computer and sat down. For a moment or two, he sat staring vaguely at the keyboard. At the next computer, a dark-haired girl, a law student, researching her theses. I leant over and said, need any help? The doctor grinned. Thanks, but I think I could probably cope. He pulled out his glasses and popped them on. His long fingers flashed over the keyboard with amazing speed. A news channel appeared. The doctor scrolled through it, speed reading. He punched up another, then another, and another. The girl raised her eyebrows and turned back to her own screen. The doctor sat back, thinking over what he had learned. The usual stuff: worldwide wars, political struggles, show business, celebrity gossip. Humans didn't change much, and crime. In particular, robberies, 2 of them, and a computer store and a government lab. There was one very brief report about an attack on an army camp. Those reports were curiously vague. Even so, he now knew there were very well protected establishments that had been targeted, and there was no explanations on how the attackers got in, how they escaped. To enter and to leave a heavily guarded place without trace suggested something else. Teleportation. The doctor thought for a moment, remembering a website he'd seen on an earlier visit to Earth. A website that dealt with the odd and the unexplained. Things like the doctor himself. In fact, a website that provided strange reasons for strange events, conspiracies. His fingers moved over the keyboard again, just as he expected. All 3 raids figured largely on that website. There was even a special article about them. The article contained one vital fact, missing from all the earlier news reports the doctor had read. Giant silver figures had been sighted at all 3 raids. Reports of the sightings had been suppressed by the authorities, using all the powers of the state, denotices, the Official Secrets Act, court injunctions, witnesses who wouldn't keep quiet and simply vanished. Many of them, he all suggested, into secure mental hospitals. There was, said the writer, only one possible explanation. The Cybermen were back, and the authorities were holding back onto the news to avoid panic. The tone of the article was wild and hysterical for the doctor, and the author might well be a little crazy, but he was right, all the same. The Cybermen were back, and if he knew about them, perhaps they knew about him, and Martha would soon be waiting by the TARDIS. The doctor jumped up, and a pretty girl at the next screen looked around. Found what you wanted? Oh, yes! Rather more than what I wanted, actually. The doctor gave her another smile, a rather sad one this time, and hurried out. The girl watched him leave. Pity, she thought. Completely bonkers, of course, but he looked rather interesting for a geek. She went back to her thesis. Chapter 6. Reunion. Martha John stood up in a familiar ward, soaking up the atmosphere. Nurses' stations, nurses' medicines, bottles, and bedpans even, sorry. Bedside tables with flowers and fruit, beds with the curtains drawn, patients in various states of good and bad health. Cheerfulness and misery, strange how all the ill ones were often the most cheerful and uncompelling, complaining. There was always the patients with the ingrowing toenails who gave the most trouble. She was chatting to Rachel, a fellow medical student. Rachel was an old friend and had seemed pleased to see her, greeting her with a hug and squeals of delight. She seemed to have got over the ordeal of recent events at the hospital, almost to have forgotten it, or rather, it was as if she didn't want to remember it, not in any detail. Martha remembered what the doctor said in the car park. Oh yes, things are pretty well back to normal now, said Rachel cheerfully. Seymour grinned. What about you? We were afraid you were dead. I had a breakdown or something. Martha realised she hadn't actually worked out a cover story. She laughed nervously. No, I'm fine. Where did you get to? Where you been this time? Martha had to think fast. Well, I was pretty shaken up. I mean, we all were, weren't we? I just had to go and get away for a while. And boy, did I get away, she thought to herself. Rachel giggled. And there were all sorts of rumours flying about. Some people said you'd gone off with Mystery Man. What Mystery Man? The skinny bloke in a suit. The police were looking for him afterwards. Martha didn't know what to say. Anyway, when are you going back? Rachel went on. I'm not quite sure. Things aren't really sorted out yet. Exam soon, remember? You'll be keeping up the work? Not exactly. She's learned quite a lot while she'd been away, she thought, but most of it wasn't on any exam syllabus. Commanding voice called from the end of the ward. Miss Wales, you could spare me a moment. Rachel pulled her face. Chambers. He's starting his rounds. I must fly. Me too, said Martha. Look, don't tell anyone to see me, okay? As Rachel sped away, Martha hurried from the ward. It had been a mistake just dropping in like this, she thought, bound to provoke lots of awkward questions. She didn't want to get trapped in a lift with someone who knew her and asked no more questions. So she took the stairs down to the busy main floor and then headed out for the car park. To her relief, the TARDIS was still standing in its place. At least the doctor hadn't taken off, leaving her stranded on Earth. What do I mean, stranded? She thought Earth was her home, this hospital, this car park, were places where she belonged. The ideas were strangely hard to accept. Was she becoming, there wasn't a word for it, a citizen of the cosmos? Like the Doctor? How long could she go on jaunting about time and space with the Doctor, and how could she bear to stop? It all needed a lot of thinking about. Leaning against the TARDIS, she settled down to wait. Suddenly, the air in front of her seemed to shimmer. Martha rubbed her eyes and blinked, but the shimmer went on. Inside it, a shape began to form. It was human-like, head, body, arms, legs, but far bigger than any human. It appeared to be made of metal, of gleaming steel. The massive body had a kind of crest unit with what looked like a layered armour underneath. But the head had tubes coming out of it like handles. The eyes were round holes, the mouth like a narrow, oblong slit. Martha knew what it was. She had seen the terrifying shape on TV and in countless newspaper photographs at the time of the invasion. It was a Cyberman. Impossible. Doctor, she thought. But here it is. It's life and twice as nasty. You can't explain it, Lou. Cyberman spoke. His voice was metallic, flat, inhuman. Where is the Doctor? Martha gulped and swallowed. Who? We have monitored a double heartbeat at this location. The Doctor has a double heartbeat. Where is the Doctor? I don't know. This box was seen inside the Torchwood Tower. Is the Doctor inside? No. He's gone away. Where has he gone? Martha was backing slowly away from the nightmare figure. Far away for a long time. She stammered, wishing it was true. But the Doctor might return at any moment, and he would be walking into an ambush. The Cyberman stretched out an arm, and the barrel of a weapon clicked into place at the wrist. We need the Doctor. Without the Doctor, you are useless to us. This is your final warning. Tell us where to find the Doctor, or you will be deleted. Chapter 7. Caught. Martha stared into the dark barrel of the cyber weapon. If she spun around and ran, weaving from side to side in the heart, she knew it would be useless. The Cyberman would simply shoot her down. Still, it was better than standing still to be shot. She tensed, ready to leap aside. An intelligent voice shouted, Oi, you! The Doctor stepped out from behind the van. The Cyberman whirled around with his arm, still raised. The cyber weapon was aimed directly at the Doctor. Look out, Doctor! Shouted Martha. Just stay where you are, Doctor told her calmly, before ducking back out of sight behind the van. The Cyberman strode after him. There followed a deadly game of hide and seek between the rows of parked cars. The Doctor's aim was simple, to dodge around the Cyberman to reach to the TARDIS. The Cyberman, however, was clearly well aware of this. Whenever the Doctor made a dash for the police box, the Cyberman was there ahead of him. The Doctor was quicker and more agile than the Cyberman. and finally he got his chance. He faked and moved to the left, moved to the right, dodged around the Cyberman, and sprinted towards Martha in the box, reaching for the TARDIS key as he ran. Martha looked on anxiously, poised to leap into the TARDIS the moment the Doctor opened the door. Then, to her horror, the air between them started to shimmer. Suddenly a second Cyberman appeared, and Doctor ran straight into his arms. It held him in an immensely powerful grip. The Doctor struggled furiously, but it was no use. The first Cyberman marched towards him. Martha froze in horror, unsure what to do. "Run, Martha!" shouted the Doctor. The air shimmered again, and to the Doctor's astonishment, the fierce grip on his arms was gone. The Cyberman holding him had simply disappeared. So had the other one. Shaking his head in amazement, the Doctor hurried to Martha, who stood looking at him as if stunned. "You alright?" he asked. "Oh yes," she said calmly. "Attacks by alien monsters? Happens every day, actually." She sighed. "I think it does happen every day. You okay?" "Oh, I'm fine. Let's get away from here." "What a good idea." Martha moved towards the TARDIS door, but Dr. Who said, "Not yet. One or two things around here need looking into. Actually, not just around here. Actually, not just one or two things either. Tell you what." "What?" "I could do with a nice cup of tea." "Typical," thought Martha. "Just when you want to go, he wants to stay." Out loud, she said, "I know just the place." They found a corner table in the busy hospital cafeteria and sat down with their teas. "Now then," said Martha, "explanation time. Where did those Cybermen come from, and why did they disappear?" "I can make a guess at the second question. The teleportation system is on the blink. I don't remember the Cybermen being able to teleport, so maybe alien technology. Alien to Cybermen, I mean. Probably overdue a service, and I'm guessing they don't have a maintenance agreement with the teleports are us first, and best in teleport repair and conditioning. As for where they come from, you think it's impossible for there to be any more Cybermen on Earth," said Martha accusingly. "It is. But there were." "There were," agreed the Doctor. "So you were wrong." "I'm never wrong," the Doctor simply. "I'm a genius. But..." The Doctor held up his hand. "What I actually said, or at least what I actually meant, meant to say was that it's possible for any of the Cybermen who invaded on the Void to still be on Earth. Why? They're all contaminated with Void material, and I'll fix this. They're all sucked back into the Void." He shot his arm out to demonstrate. "Zoom! Like that!" "So those two were the first of a new lot? Scouts from an invading army?" The Doctor shook his head. "No," he said definitely. "It's impossible for any more Cybermen to break through. I told you, the gap into the Void is sealed forever." Once again, that expression of sadness passed over the Doctor's face. "That's a good thing, isn't it?" asked Martha. "The gap being permanently sealed?" "I suppose so." "Then why you look so glum about it?" "Personal reasons," said the Doctor briefly. He brought his attention back to the present. "Anyway," Martha was saying, "according to you, not only the old laws invading the Cybermen can still be here." "That's right. So no new ones could have arrived." "Impossible. So how can those two we just saw be there? I mean, unless they were here all along." She broke off. The Doctor was staring at her wide-eyed. "That's it! Homemade! Hey, perhaps they're a genius too." "Thanks, Doctor. Even before they finally invaded the Cybermen can establish the base. Besides, the torture tower can enable, but that's for making new Cybermen there. They must have made some purely Earth materials, stuff they found here. This lot could never have passed through the Void. Not before the account of the raids he found on the internet. Then there can only be a few of them." "Just as well?" Martha paused. "You were there, weren't you? The final battle?" The Doctor nodded. "My cousin, Auntie Ola, she worked at the torture tower." She never came home after. Martha sighed. I just wondered if you might have seen her. She looks a bit like me. But what he saw in his mind was a dark-skinned girl sitting rigidly upright at a control console. He saw her earpiece being wrenched away, the fleshy cyber filament being tucked out from deep inside her brain. He freed her and several of her colleagues from cyber control and killed them in the process. Martha was watching the expression on the doctor's face. What is it, Doctor? With an effort, the doctor pushed the terrible memory aside. Things were very chaotic there in the end. A lot of people died. I'm sorry, Martha. Martha would have asked more questions, but suddenly she heard a voice calling from her from across the room. Martha, over here! Martha jumped up. It's Rachel, an old friend of mine. And we were talking earlier. I'll get rid of her. But I should chat to her for a few minutes. The doctor nodded as if he had barely heard her. Then Martha hurried away. He sat staring into a plastic cup of cold tea. He needed to find out more about what was going on. Then a shadow fell over him. He looked up and saw an attractive, fair-haired girl in army uniform. She was flanked by two very large red-capped military policemen, both armed with revolvers. I'm Captain Sheila Sargent, she said crisply, and you are the doctor. It was a statement, not a question. The doctor looked thoughtfully at her. This didn't look too good. There are a lot of doctors here, he said mildly. It is a hospital after all. She gave him a winty smile. Ah, but you're the doctor, the one we want. You're under arrest. Chapter 8. Arrest. The doctor leaned back in his rickety plastic chair, glancing idly around the canteen. His eyes passed over Martha, who had stopped talking to the girl in the TQ and was looking at him in alarm. She started to move towards him, and he gave a tiny shake of his head. On the other side of the room, Martha picked up the signal. No use, both of them getting scooped up in the authorities. She turned to Rachel. Lend me your coat, quick, just for a moment. Puzzled, Rachel took off her white coat and slipped it into... And Martha slipped into it, She saw a familiar figure, just ahead of her in the queue, and tapped him on the shoulder. Frank Shaw, how's it going? The young man, another fellow medical student, turned and looked at her in amazement. Martha, what are you doing here? You back with us? Not exactly. Found your stethoscope, she asked. Let's have a look. She slipped it around his neck and pretended to listen to his heart. Rachel had been watching all this. What's going on, Martha? Is that your mysterious friend out there? With all those army types, he seems to be in trouble. He usually is, said Martha. Look, I can't explain right now. Just keep chatting, okay? So I can blend in with the crowd. At his table, the doctor was still playing for time. It's all my charge of. I do have rights, you know. I doubt it, Doctor, said the young woman. You're not a citizen, are you? According to confidential files, you're not even human. Let's just say it's a matter of national security. Planetary security might be more accurate. The doctor stood up. Alright, so we're going. Let's go. And no trouble, said one of the two massive military policemen. The doctor looked thoughtfully at him. As if it happened, the doctor was quite keen to get in contact with the authorities on his own terms. This seems to be a good way as any. Captain Sargent said, By the way, where's your companion? The doctor looked puzzled. Companion? According to the files, there's always a companion, usually an attractive young female. Where is she? I have no idea what you're talking about, the doctor. But you could be my companion if you like. He watched her expression change to a frown. Okay, so you don't like it. The job's still vacant then. Captain Sargent looked around the busy canteen. It was crowded with doctors, nurses, medical students and patients. There were quite a few attractive young females among them. Never mind. We'll pick them up later. Come along, Doctor. She led the way out of the canteen. and the doctor followed, flanked by 2 military policemen. They both crossed the floor and left the hospital. As they reached the top of the hospital steps, the doctor could help glancing towards the car park. "Don't worry about your TARDIS, Doctor," said Captain Sargent. "It's been taken care of. It'll reach Captain Chadwick Green soon afterwards." She led him across the car park to the spot where he'd left his TARDIS. A lorry with built-in lifting gear they kindly used to take away illegally parked cars stood next to the police box. Men in denim overalls with fitting padded clamps around it. "Should have brought a ticket after all," said the doctor. He grinned at the men. "And you over care, won't you? She's not as young as she used to be, but then, who is?" "This way, Doctor," said Captain Sargent. She led him to the army staff car parked nearby. One of the military policemen climbed to the back seat, and the second one signalled the doctor to follow him. He got in, and the second policeman followed. The doctor was sandwiched between them. Captain Sargent took the seat beside the driver, and the started car swept away. "So, what is Chadwick Green?" asked the doctor, as they drove off out the car park. "Army Research Centre, just outside London," said Captain Sargent. "No more questions to arrive, please, Doctor. Then we'll be asking them." "Oh, now that's a surprise. Big surprise, that is. Surprised to be you can paint it red and call it a bus. Oof." The policeman on his left had given him a painful elbow jab in the ribs. "You heard the officer. Shut it." The doctor shut it, and the staff car sped on its way. In the vast, shadowy chamber where the Cybermen had set up their base, the 3 Cybermen were debating in a cold, unfeeling way. "You have failed in your duty," the Cyber leader told the Cyber engineer. "The teleport failed at a vital moment. Transmission focus was lost. The doctor was in our hands, now he has escaped us." "The scanning equipment has also failed," said the second Cyberman. "We cannot locate the doctor." The Cyber engineer said emotionally, "I informed you that this alien machine was unreliable. You did not take that fact into account in your plans. You have failed in your duty as leader. Do not dispute my authority or you will be deleted." "We are only 3, the Cyber engineer reminded him. "To reduce our number to 2 would be insufficient." "Then we must adapt our plan," the other Cyberman said. Then there was a moment of silence as the Cyber leader processed these words. Then he said, "Have you repaired the teleportation equipment? Limited function will soon be restored. Then we will test it with another transmission. Transmitting only one of us will reduce the strain on the focused equipment. When the teleport is repaired, you will transmit me back to the same place," ordered the Cyber leader. "The doctor may still be in the area. His capture is essential." Chapter 9. Interrogation. The doctor was being driven through the gates of Chadwick Green Research Centre. The car drove along, jet to the parade ground and drew up close to one of the larger huts. "Out!" ordered one of the injured policemen. He got out of the car and the second policeman shoved the doctor out after him. Captain Sargent stood waiting. She slapped the roof of the car and drove away. "Come along, Doctor. Major Barton's waiting." "Just a moment, Captain," said the doctor. There was an unexpected note of authority in his voice. "What is it?" she said impatiently. The doctor nodded towards the military policeman who had shoved him in the car. "One of your men is a bit too free with his hands, or rather say his elbow. His ribs are still a bit sore." Captain Sargent looked at the man. "Well, no idea what he's talking about, Mom. We were a bit crowded in the back. I might have joisted him accidentally." "You see, Doctor? Just an accident." "It was nothing of the kind," said the doctor angrily. "It was deliberate assault, an assault on my ribs." She led Sergeant aside. "If you care to make an official complaint, I'll see it's investigated. Once I've filed in a dozen forms, I bet. Still, I don't think we need to be too formal about a little matter like this," said the doctor. "I'll sooner deal with it informally." "And how do you propose to do that? Like this?" said the doctor. He reached up He had to reach up since the man towered over him. He pulled the offending policeman's nose. He didn't pull it very hard, but there was something scornful about the gesture that made him completely infuriating. With a roar of rage, the policeman hurled himself at the doctor. Sheila Sandra wasn't quite clear about what had happened next, even though it took place right in front of her. Somehow, the man missed his target and ended up in a heap on the ground, his revolver now in the doctor's hands and covering the little group. The policeman stopped, looked to his officer for orders. Captain Sargent did her best to hide the shock. "You can't hope to escape, Doctor." "Oh, I don't want to escape," said the doctor. "I'm just protecting my whips." "Well, maybe you're making a bit of point as well." He gestured with the revolver. "Get him on his feet. He's not badly hurt." The policeman helped his colleague to rise. "Right," said the doctor. He paused, seemed to notice the gun in his hand for the first time. "Yes," he decided. "I think you'd better look after this." He handed it to the sergeant. "Now, let's go and see this major. What's his name?" Sergeant stared at the gun. She was now holding in surprise. "Major Barton," she answered automatically. The doctor grinned. "Right, let's go for Barton." Major Barton looked up as the captain sergeant came into his office, followed by 2 military policemen. Behind them came a thin, youngish man with untidy dark hair, wearing a rather scuffy pinstripe suit. Major Barton gave no sign of surprise. He rose politely from behind his desk. "Ah, Captain Sergeant, you brought a visitor to see me?" "You might be more accurate to say that he brought us, sir," said Sheila Sergeant ruefully. The doctor grinned affably. "Just helping out." He turned to the military policeman. "Now then, you two, why don't you clear off and study the Geneva Convention or something? The bit about the treatment of prisoners is instructive." The 2 policemen looked at Major Barton, who nodded briefly. They saluted and marched out. "Now then," the doctor said briefly, "I take it you're Major Barton. You're in charge here?" "I'd like to think so." "I'd like to think that I'm the doctor." I rather gathered that. "You want to talk to me, and I want to talk to you. Let's not waste any more time. Oh, and how about some tea and sandwiches before we start? I seem to have missed lunch." It took some time for Martha to get away from Rachel and Fanshawe. They were full of questions, none of which she really wanted to answer. Where had she been? Who was her friend? Why had he been arrested? But she broke away at last, promising to return later and explain everything. It was only as she was hurrying down the hospital steps that she realised she had no idea where to go or what to do next. She could go to the police, tell them what happened and demand to get put in touch with the doctor, or she could go back to her family and face still more uncomfortable questions. Still, she had to sleep somewhere that night, and at least they'd give her a meal. She decided to wait by the TARDIS. If she had escaped, or the doctor had escaped, or told his way out of trouble, he'd be certain to go back there. But when she reached the spot, the TARDIS was gone. Martha stared at the blank space in shock. Had the doctor gone off in it? Not of his military escort, surely. More likely the army had taken it. Since they scooped out the doctor, they might as well just grab the TARDIS too. So now, what was she supposed to do? She just decided on a family as the least bad of her choices when the system was taken for her. The air before her shimmered. Seeing the danger, she turned to run, but it was already too late. A sideman appeared before her and clasped her in a steely embrace. Martha struggled for a moment, but it was no use. "Shall we dance?" she said. A tall, blue-clad figure stepped out from between the cars. PC Jim Wilkin. Making yet another of his routine patrols, he saw a girl struggling in the grip of a giant silver figure and yelled, "Hey, stop that! Let her go!" But it was too late. The girl and her attacker simply faded away. PC Wilkie groaned and mopped his brow. What was the desk sergeant going to make of this? Chapter 10. The doctor takes charge. The doctor was sitting very much at his ease. in the visitor's chair in front of Major Barton's desk, finishing the last plate of ham sandwiches. Major Barton watched him thoughtfully. He was a patient man when he needed to be. If the doctor was prepared to be cooperative, he was willing to treat him as a guest, not a prisoner. The doctor swallowed the last bit of his sandwich and washed it down with a swig from his mug of tea. "My compliments to the cookhouse," he said, indistinctly. "Now, let's get to real meat, shall we? Why have you brought me here?" "To answer questions, not ask them," snapped Julia Sandron. Major Barton held up his hand to silence her. "There have been a number of curious and unexplained incidents recently, Doctor," he said. "I'm not sure if I'm allowed to tell you about them." "Then why bring me here? Bit of a waste of time all around if you ask me." The doctor stood up. "But that's your problem. I'll be off then, shall I?" He waited a moment, enjoying their confused reactions, then he sat down again. "Don't worry, I already know. You're concerned about a series of raids on technology and research centres, including this base. Am I right? Or am I right?" "How the devil?" The doctor ignored the interruption. All the raids were on well-protected, well-guarded places, which all entered with no alarms, triggered no traces or for a break-in. In each raid, advanced electronic equipment was stolen. "You're very well informed," said Major Barton. "Suspiciously well informed," said Captain Sandron. "Where did you learn all this?" The doctor waved at the computers on the desk. "On the internet, like everyone else. I learned something else as well. It seems very likely the raids were carried out by Cybermen." "That information is classified," said Sheila Sandron angrily. "Is it? Well, it's on every conspiracy of the web. You still haven't answered my question." "What question? Why did you bring me here?" It was Major Barton who answered him. "After the recent alien invasions, the authorities issued a series of confidential reports. The reports leave out a lot of information, but, reading between the lines, it seems clear that someone called the Doctor has to do a lot with defeating the invasion." "I suppose that's true," said the doctor modestly. "Well, it was all me, really. Most of the time, everyone else just got in the way. People do that. So, you arrested me or what?" "In my view, this is military intelligence matter," said Major Barton stiffly. "I should prefer to deal with this myself." The doctor laughed. "Makes sense. Right through between two agencies. You want something to boast about all the intelligence organisations. Christmas party." Celia Sandron interrupted him. "Let's stick to the Cybermen, shall we, Doctor? You seem to know so much about them." "Just a bit. Big bit, actually. Well, rather a lot, really," said the doctor. "I take you brought here to ask for my help." "Well, yes. And in order to persuade me for that help, you had me arrested in public, throw me in the car with a couple of gorillas, and whiz down here. Oh, and elbow me in the ribs. The other guy was elbowed in the ribs." "I'm sorry if you feel our methods were abrupt, Doctor," said Major Barton, "but there is a crisis." The doctor thought for a moment. It seemed to Sheila Sandron that, somehow, he had taken charge. They were waiting on his decision. "Yeah, all right," said the doctor. "I'll help you, but on certain conditions. I want a completely free hand. No more under this arrest nonsense. Nothing more in the ribs either. I won't have that." "Very well," said Major Barton. "Sir, is that wise?" just protested Captain Sandron. "That's my decision, Captain," said Major Barton. "I'm impressed with the doctor's grasp of what has happened. If he plays ball with me, I'll play ball with him." "Oh, I used to play a game of cricket," said the doctor. "Mind you, I'd like to do something for me." He turned to the sergeant. "You're quite right. I do have a companion, or friend, as you heard people say when you're speaking proper English. Her name's Martha Jones." He gave a brief description of Martha. "She made herself scarce when you picked me up. I'd like you to find her and bring her up here. Approach her nicely. Tell her she can ring me if she's worried." "I'll get on to it," said Sheila Sandron. "It'll be the quickest if I send a staff car." She moved over to her desk and picked up the phone. "Tell them to mind her ribs," the doctor said. When she finished the call, Sandra turned back to the doctor. "Now then, doctor," as Major Barton said, "there is a crisis." "Well, sort of. There is, and there isn't," said the doctor. "What's that supposed to mean?" "There is a crisis, yes, but it may not be as bad as you think." Major Barton sighed. "Looks pretty bad to me. Perhaps you'd like to explain that." The doctor got up and began pacing up and down the office. "You're afraid these raids are the start of a full-scale Cyberman invasion?" "Well, aren't they?" "No," the doctor said firmly. "Another invasion is impossible." "Why?" asked Sheila Sargent doubtfully. "Cybermen invaded Earth from another dimension. They came through something called the Void. I defeated their invasion by having them all sucked back into the Void and sealing the gateway between the dimension and ours forever. They can never return to Earth. But they have. They're here." "They didn't invade. They were here all along," said the doctor. "A handful of Cybermen were created here on Earth. They weren't sucked into a void with the others because they never were contaminated by it." Major Barton said, "Stay behind the group with a hidden base supplies weapons. We planned to do the same in the 1940s when the Nazis invaded. And the Nazis did do it in 1945 when we invaded Germany. Called themselves werewolves." The doctor stopped pacing and perched on the corner of Major Barton's desk. "Whatever we call them, we still have a problem," he said. "Even a small group of Cybermen can do an awful lot of damage." "What makes you sure it's a small group?" demanded Sheila. "Even if your theory's right, they could have harmed me hidden away." "They didn't have the time or the resources," said the doctor. Without anyone noticing, he had taken off the meeting, or any other reason to come to that. They didn't know where they were going to be sucked into the void, not until it was too late. Bit of a dark plan, they did. No, I'm pretty sure there were no more than a handful of them. "Why?" asked Sheila again. "Cybermen always attack at large numbers, if they can," said the doctor. "Yet nobody's ever seen more than 2 of these lot at the same time. There's at least one left at their base to operate the transmission equipment. Could be no more than 3 of them, maybe 1 or 2 in reserve." Major Barton was looking a lot more cheerful. "Let's hope that you're right about that, Doctor. I think we can deal with a mere handful of Cybermen, however powerful they are. So, all we need to do now is, where are they? That's all we need to know." "And what do they want?" added Sheila. "Oh, we know that," said the doctor. "We know what they want. We know what they want. It's obvious. They want me." He told them. "Will he attempt to kidnap me?" "And why would they want you?" asked Sheila. "Oh, thanks. Big ego boost that was. But actually, for the same reason as you do. They think I can help them." "How?" "As you said yourself, it's a question of what they want," said the doctor. 9 Cybermen, the only aim is the conquest. They know that they can't conquer the Earth for only a few of them. I'd rather imagine they want me to open the gateway to the void again and bring back their cyber army. Chapter 11. Hostage. The brief blur of teleportation faded, and Martha Jones stood looking around her in amazement. She was in a vast, shadowy core of some kind. A domed roof supported by struts and cables was just visible high overhead. Electronic equipment had been assembled in a small, lighted area. It was tended by 2 giant steel figures. The Cyberman that had brought her released its grip and thrust Martha towards the others. "This female is known to the doctor. You were instructed to bring the doctor. The doctor was not found. Transmission time was limited. The human female was there, so I brought her. We have no use for her." Martha found that anger was rapidly replacing fear. "I've had no much for you lot either," she said angrily. Ignoring her, the Cybermen went on, discussing her in their flat metallic voices. "It is possible that she knows where the doctor may be found. Ask her." The Cybermen who captured her swung around, looming over her. "Where is the doctor?" "No idea. Tell us or you will be deleted." Killed, you mean? That is correct. If you kill me, I won't be able to tell you anything. Tell us where to find the doctor, ordered the Cyberman. I don't know where he is. A massive metal hand took her elbow in a claw-like grip. Tell us where the doctor is or I will cause you pain. The grip clamped harder. Martha bit her lip and told me not to scream. Humans are fragile, she said with an effort. I'm going to do it again then. The grip clamped her harder. Martha bit her lip to tell me not to scream. Humans are fragile, she said with an effort. If you hurt me, I will die. Since you will not speak, we will lose nothing by killing you, said the Cyberman. He turned to one who seemed to be the leader. Shall I delete her? The Cyber leader considered, for what seemed to be Martha, a very long time. No, he said at last. When we will find the doctor, she will be a useful hostage. The Cyberman holding Martha released his grip and turned away. Martha stood rubbing her sore elbow. Looking around her, she was overcome by a strange feeling. She was pretty sure that she had been here before, but not with a place like this, a dark, empty shell. When she'd been here before, she had been lights and music, clowns and aerial dancers, expositions and installations and cafes and food stalls. There had been a whole fairground. She came as a stroppy teenager, dragged here by their mum and dad, still together then. She quite enjoyed it, although she refused to admit it. I'm in the dome, she realised. The Cyberman's secret base is the Millennium Dome. The doctor, Major Barton and Captain Sergeant stood watching as the duty corporal finished pinning a scale map of Greater London to the map board on the office wall. Thank you, Corporal, said Major Barton. Sir, barred soldiers. He saluted and marched out. It's hopeless, said Sheila Sergeant. They could be anywhere on this map. Or off it, said Major Barton. We've got no guarantee they're in this area at all. It could be anywhere between Land's End and John O'Groats. The doctor said, I doubt it. Sheila Sergeant asked her usual question. Why? For one thing, the teleportation equipment isn't very reliable. It failed when they tried to capture us. I don't think they trust it any further than they can throw a rat. Mind you, Cybermen, good throwing arms, still quite away, but they broke out from the torture tower, remember? I still think we're looking for the first good hiding place close to Canary Wharf. How do you find it? Power, said the doctor. They need massive amounts and must still be using it. He paused for a moment to think. Unless they've thousands of highly trained hamsters going around in special wheels. No, he decided. Definitely steering it. So, if we're to trace the electricity leakage, I'll get onto the grid, said Sheila Sergeant. She went over to her phone, but rang her before she could pick it up. Hello? Yes. Yes, I see. Thank you. Sheila turned to the doctor and Barton. My people have checked all over the Royal Hope and couldn't find your friend, although several people remember talking to her, but she hesitated. The doctor saw the look on her face. But what? A policeman reported a strange event in the car park. A silver giant grabbing a girl, and they both vanished. She went back to the toilets and found it had gone, said the doctor. While she was there, Cyberman turned up looking for me and settled to Martha, he began, pacing up and down again, thinking out loud. She can't tell them anything, she doesn't know where I am. They might just kill her, but there's a chance they'll keep her as a hostage. Ah! He stopped pacing and pointed at the desk. Can I use your phone? He beamed at Major Barton and Captain Sergeant. I keep forgetting how technology advanced as humans are these days. Do you think she'll be able to answer? Asked Sheila Sergeant as she watched the doctor dialing Martha's mobile number. If she's still alive, said the doctor quietly. Chapter 12. Attack. In the echoing gloom of the dome, Martha studied the group of Cybermen. They were clustered around their equipment and seemed to be ignoring her for the moment. Maybe this was her chance. Martha was determined to do something. She certainly wasn't going to mope around, waiting for someone to come and rescue her. She started to edge slowly away from what she remembered. The dome was huge. Maybe she could get away, hide somewhere perhaps. She could even escape. If she could find the doctor and tell him of the Simon's base. She moved a little further away. A metallic voice boomed, "Do not move or you will be deleted." Martha shrugged and shook still, waiting for another chance. When her mobile phone rang, it seemed so normal that she answered automatically. "Hello?" The doctor's voice ran out clearly. "Martha! How lovely to hear your voice. I'm at Chadwick Green Research Centre. So, where the devil are you?" "I'm in the A giant metal hand reached out and snatched the phone, crushing it into metal fragments. "Excellent," said the cyber leader. "That is all we need to know. Prepare the attack squad for revival." The doctor looked at his dead phone for a moment and put it away. "What did she say?" asked Sheila Sandron. "Just one syllable," said the doctor. "Do." I said, "Do with my." He went back to a map and studied it thoroughly. "I spy at my little eyes, something beginning with do." His pointing finger shot out, and there it is. Do, as in do. How could I have been so stupid? The dome! The good old Millennium Dome, big, deserted, lots of outlets, and conveniently close to Canary Wharf. Well, at least someone's found a use for it at last. Martha stood watching as two of the sidemen dragged a coffin-shaped metal box up to the equipment complex and attached electrodes to the sides. The box hummed with power and a giant steel shape sat up inside like a corpse walking from the dead, or like Frankenstein's monster coming to life in an old horror movie. The sideman climbed stiffly from the container and stood upright. Its metal arm clanged across its armoured chest in salute. Then it moved aside and another container was dragged forward. Martha watched, horrified and fascinated, as the processes was repeated again, and again, until 4 more Cybermen had been revived from the hibernation. The Cyber leader reviewed his troops. "Soon we shall be ready for transmission. The doctor must be captured alive. Other life forms may be deleted." Martha wondered if these were all the Cybermen that had been held in reverse. 5 in all, and with the original 3, 8, unless they had a whole army stashed somewhere. Though, according to the doctor, they wouldn't have had time. She stepped forward. "Are those all you have?" "They will be sufficient." The cyber leader turned to the original 2 Cybermen. "One of you will operate the teleport mechanism. The other will guard the prisoner. We shall return with the doctor." A circle of light appeared in the centre of the equipment complex. One by one, the Cybermen stepped into it and faded away. The cyber leader waited till last. "What good will it do to capture the doctor anyway?" Sorry, let's do it again, because I read that wrong. "What good will it do to capture the doctor anyway?" said Martha, as he prepared to depart. "He won't help you." "The doctor will obey our orders," said the cyber leader. "Why should he? If he does not help us, he will see you die." Major Barton was in his element, barking orders into the telephone and busily assembling an assault force to attack the dome. The doctor looked on, his face grave. He seemed to be waiting on something, for something. "Don't spread your forces too thin, Major," he warned. "I'd keep some men here to guard the base." "They won't attack us here," said the Major confidently. "We have the upper hand now. We know where they are. They'll soon be on the defensive." "We may know where they are," said Sheila Sandron. "But don't forget they know where you are, Doctor." "True," he admitted. "Because you told them," said Sheila Sandron. "Oh yes, I did, didn't I?" said the doctor. "Why? You didn't have to," he sniffed. "It just seemed like a good idea at the time." "But if they know where you are, and they'll desperately need your help, isn't it possible they'll try and get you?" The doctor made a point of seeming surprised. "You really think so?" "Well, yes, I suppose so, it's possible. Maybe you better take precautions." The Major looked worried. It will take some time for us attack force to assemble. If they attack us again here, he smiled. Even if they do, we'll cope. Made some extra preparations after last week, plus some special equipment. The sound of a shot came from outside the office, then another, then a volley of shots, and then the blare of an alarm. They rushed to the door and looked out, to see a line of still figures advancing across the parade ground. Chapter 13. Battleground. The doctor surveyed the advancing group. 6 of them, he said, and 1 or 2 more back at base. Shots rang out as soldiers fired from the shelter of the nearby buildings. Bullets bounced off the armoured bodies of the attackers. The Cybermen ignored them and continued their steady advance. Red flares of energy pulsed from their wrist guns. The soldiers screamed, twisted and fell. Major Burton and Captain Sargent drew their revolvers and joined the defence. Their bullets, like those of the soldiers, had no effect. Rifles and revolvers won't do them any good, called the doctor. So you've just discovered, said Major Barton grimly. So don't worry, Doctor, I told you, I ordered some special equipment. He raised his voice in a parade ground bellowed, Special Guard, forward! 2 men rushed forward from them 2 of the buildings and wore heavy packs and carried a sort of giant metal tube between them. It was obviously a well-rehearsed action. 1 soldier knelt down and the other helped him to shoulder the tube. And then the second man knelt behind the first and adjusted the giant tube, using his fellow as an aiming position. Latest ground-to-ground rocket launcher, said the Major. Reloadable, uses high explosive shells, still in the experimental stage, but they can claim it will take out a tank. When the tube was ready, the first soldier held it steady. When the second pulled a firing handle set into the weapon's slide. A fiery streak shot across the parade ground, striking the Cyberman full in the chest. The results were immediate and spectacular. The Cyberman exploded in a ball of flame, and a shower of metal fragments rained down the parade ground. A ragged cheer went up from the surrounding soldiers. Reload! Bellowed Major Barton. The second soldier took a shell from the pack and lowered it into the tube. Fire! Shouted Major Barton. He was too late. Several energy blasts converged on the weapon and exploded, killing both soldiers. Barton, fire and take cover. Second squad forward, shouted Major Barton. Another 2-man team appeared, aimed their weapon and fired. The second Cyberman was destroyed, and the team darted back into the cover behind the buildings. With incredible speed they reloaded and fired again, blowing up another Cyberman. 3 down, 3 to go, said Major Barton. I told you we'd cope, Doctor. He had spoken too soon, as the second team darted from cover of the fire for the 3rd time. All 3 surviving Cybermen fired at once like the first. The second weapon exploded, killing its crew. How many more of those have you got? Asked the doctor. Just 1. It'll have to be enough. Major Barton raised his voice. 3rd square forward. The arrival of the 3rd squad seemed to take the Cybermen by surprise, and yet another Cyberman was blasting into nothingness. But the shot alerted the 2 survivors, and they both turned and fired, killing both soldiers. Somehow, the weapon escaped most of the impact and rolled across the parade ground. The 2 remaining Cybermen advanced. Suddenly, Major Burton leaped from the shelter of the doorway, dashed across the parade ground, grabbed the weapon and the fallen shell pack, and carried them into cover. Even for a man his size, it was an incredible feat of strength. It takes 2 to fire it, shouted Captain Sargent. She started to follow him, but the doctor was ahead of her, dodging between the pulses of the Cybermen guns. He ran behind the building. Major Barton was loading the rocket launcher, struggling to raise it to his shoulder. The doctor helped him, and knelt behind the Major, steadying the launcher. Firing lever on the side, he gasped. Barton. The doctor found it, just as Cybermen came round the corner of the hut. For a moment, the doctor paused. He looked at the Cyberman, thought about the human being it had once been, a thinking, feeling, real person, but no more. That person was dead already. The doctor and the Cyberman fired at the same instant. The Cyberman exploded and so did the launcher. The doctor, leaping aside as soon as he fired, was knocked off his feet by the blast. Major Barton was not so lucky. His body lay slump across the shattered remains of the weapon. The doctor struggled to his feet and staggered over him. He knelt beside the body, felt for a pulse, and found nothing. The doctor straightened up, just as the side leader, the only side man to survive the battle, appeared around the corner of the hut. The side leader raised his arm, and the doctor gazed into the barrel of the side weapon attached to his wrist. Chapter 14. The Gateway. For a long moment, the two confronted each other. The side leader scanned the doctor intently. "You are the doctor. You're not wrong, you know. I am the doctor. You must help us." "You could be wrong now, though." "Must I?" "Your female associate is our prisoner at the place humans call the Dome. Come to us there and help us, or she will die." As he finished speaking, the air around the side leader shimmered, and he faded away. Captain Sargent came round the corner, revolver in hand, just as the side leader disappeared. Well, that was the last of them. "For the moment," said the doctor. "There are more of them in the Dome. I'm not sure how many." "The assault force will deal with the rest of them." She looked down at Major Barton's body. "Is he dead?" "I'm afraid so." She nodded, accepting the loss as soldiers do. "He was very brave. Performance V5. VC. I shouldn't wonder. You were brave too, helping him." "Was I? Guns aren't brave, you know. All the same, I'm grateful." "What will you do now?" "Join up with the assault force and finish the job for him." The doctor looked her in the eyes. "If you attack the Dome in force, you'll lose more men." "It goes with the job." "I can't let you do that. My friend Martha is a prisoner there. The Sidemen will kill her as soon as the battle starts. They're no use for prisoners." "I'm sorry, Doctor. What else can I do? It's not just your friend who's in danger." "You can trust me," said the doctor. "What do you mean?" "You said you were grateful, then do something for me. You've got my TARDIS here." "Yes, it's in the security vault." "Take me to it. If you do, there's a chance I can save Martha and dispose of the Sidemen for you without any more loss of life." "You deliberately told Simon where you were, didn't you, Doctor? So you could make a deal with them?" He looked hard at him. "They'd have found me sooner or later," Lil said quietly. "And how many more people would have died along the way? How many more weak, defenseless people would you think would have been killed who tore the city apart to find me? They would need no one to survive. And that's the thing that drives them, not emotions, not love, not hatred, not ambition, or greed. Survival." "The Sidemen want you to reopen the gateway to bring back their army. Would you do that?" "No. Not even save your friend. No." "How can I be sure of that? How can I be sure you wouldn't sacrifice all of us to save her life?" "Because I can't do it," said the doctor. "The gate they want me to open is closed forever, even to me. And then they'll kill you both." "Oh, I do wish you hadn't said that. Look, I've got a sort of plan," the doctor told her. "Okay. It's not fully worked. There's a lot that depends on luck, but fall to it. I have to be in the Dome with the Sidemen and with the TARDIS." She studied for a moment longer. "All right. But we'll attack the Dome and destroy the remaining Sidemen anyway, if you want to be in there when we do. This way, Doctor." They walked back towards the now floodlit parade ground, where squads of soldiers and medics were clearing away the debris of battle and carrying off the dead and wounded. On the far side of the parade ground, the main gates were open and a convoy of army trucks were driving through them. "The assault force is arriving," Sheila said with satisfaction. "I better brief them. This way." She led him to the concrete archway, guarded by Silurian sentries, that formed the entrance to the vault, and punched the security code into the electronic lock. Massive steel doors slid slowly back, and they moved into a concrete corridor, ending in a lift, guarded by yet more soldiers. The lift took them down to the vast chamber lined with steel and reinforced concrete. There was patch of workbenches, lab compartments and crates of supplies and equipment, and there, in a dark enclosure, stood in the TARDIS. The Doctor beamed and patted it affectionately. "I'll detail a squad of men to take it back to service for you," ordered Sheila. No, said the Doctor hesitantly. "I'll take care of all that. You've got a lot to do. Your soul force is waiting. If you're sure. Goodbye, Doctor, and good luck. I'll see you in the dome," said the Doctor, and disappeared into the TARDIS. Sheila Sargent shrugged and turned away. Inside the TARDIS, the Doctor stood over the console, thinking furiously. He had the edits exactly right. Strange that a simple journey of just a few miles should be so much harder than just a trip to Mars or to the moon. His fingers moved carefully over the controls. Captain Sargent almost reached the corridor that led to the lift when she heard a strange sound. There was a sort of wheezing, yet it seemed to be a kind of groaning as well. She turned, and just in time to see the battered old police box fade away, she shook her head. Disappearing Cybermen, disappearing police boxes, dismissing them from her mind, Sheila headed towards the assault force. Whoever was supposed to be in command, she knew who was really going to be running things. Chapter 15. Arrival. Martha stood in the vast and shadowy dome, considering her next move. There were only 2 Cybermen with her now. The trouble was, the Cybermen told her to guard her and stay close to her at all times. Martha was sure it would grab her at once if she tried to escape. Even if she managed to dodge away from him, it could easily shoot her down before he got far. Or she got far. The other Cyberman was busily working on the complex electronic equipment. It seemed to be receiving signals of some kind, then the air shimmered and another Cyberman appeared. It stood for a moment, gazing almost arrogantly around. Somehow Martha sensed that this was the cyber leader. She waited, but no other Cyberman appeared. There was no sign of the Doctor. The attack squad was destroyed. The cyber leader told the 2 Cybermen, "The humans have improved their weapons. We have lost the entire attack squad. We have no more in reserve," said one. "Was there a reapproach?" Oh, sorry. I thought that was speech, sorry. Was there a reapproach in the Cyberman's voice? Perhaps. It was rival for the position of the leader. Martha thought if the Cybermen felt any emotion, it would surely be the loss of power, and perhaps these Cybermen, so recently human and converted quickly during the invasion, had a little more humanity than they should. "The loss is of no importance," said the cyber leader. "Soon our army will return from the void." "That is impossible. You have failed in your mission. You have not captured the Doctor." "It is not necessary to capture the Doctor. He knows that this human is our prisoner. To save her life, he will come of his own accord." "Will we help free the Doctor and the human if he helps us?" "No, the Doctor is a dangerous enemy. We shall kill them both." The sheer injustice of it made Martha angry. "That's not fair. You promised to let her go as the Doctor helped you." "Promises made to inferior species have no meaning. I'll show you who's inferior," muttered Martha. The Cyberman gasped, and I said, "What if the Doctor does not come?" "He will come." The worst thing about it, thought Martha, but the cyber leader was quite right. If there was any chance of freeing her, the Doctor would come. He'd come if there was no chance at all. Sure enough, a familiar sound filled the air, and the TARDIS appeared beside the collection of cyber equipment. The door opened, and the Doctor stepped out, leaving the door open behind him. He looked round happily. "Oh, that's brilliant. An inspired priest in navigation, if I say so myself. These very short trips are the hardest, you know. Hello, Martha. You alright?" "Never better," said Martha. "Been having a lovely time, you know. Song and dance and great conversation." The Doctor seemed not to notice her sarcasm. Good, glad you're happy." He looked around him. "Wonderful place, the dome." "Of course, it's not really a proper dome at all. Nah, self-supporting, you see. Properly speaking, it's a mass-supported dome-shaped cable network. Did you know it's covered with coated glass fabric? You must begin your task, Doctor, said the cyber leader impatiently. There is much to do unless you succeed. Don't bother with the usual threats, said the Doctor wearily. If I don't open the gateway to the void for your cyber army, you'll kill Martha and me as well. That is correct. The Cybermen will return. There you are again, the Doctor said. Millennium Dome, not proper dome. Cybermen, not proper men. You are really going to help him, Doctor? Martha said in surprise. Oh, I'm afraid I have to, Martha. There's simply no other way. I mean, what else can I do? Stand there, watch you die? Not a lot of fun in that, is there? But you said you... Hastily, the Doctor interrupted her. I know what I said, Martha. I said I wouldn't do it. I said I wouldn't do it whatever happened. But things have changed. He hadn't said that at all, thought Martha. He said he couldn't. That'd be impossible. But couldn't was clearly a word he didn't want the Cyberman to hear. She made a last attempt to warn him. They can't kill us both anyway if you don't help them. Now, Martha, said the Doctor infuriatingly. The Cybermen are in honourable ways. I'm sure they'll never break their word. And if you believe that, they'll believe anything, said Martha quietly. But obviously the Doctor didn't believe it at all. He was up to something. Quickly, Martha reviewed the situation. Things were already improving. They were together in the dome, and they were close to the open door of the TARDIS. Once inside, they'd be safe. She decided to watch and wait. The Doctor moved over to the equipment complex and studied it. Another fine mess, he said scornfully. Where'd you collect this load of rubbish? Right at the back of a lorry, did it? Cyber Leader took the question literally. It has not fallen. Some of it is our own cyber equipment, which we retrieved from the torture tower. The rest we took from the humans. The Doctor continued his examination. Well, I can tell you now, most of it's no use at all. I mean, you sold it that bit then. He paused. Except perhaps, he leaned forward. He examined the teleportation equipment. This might just possibly. The Doctor straightened up, addressing the Cyber Leader. I think I could boost the power of the teleportation equipment so that it reaches clear into the void. That it create the gateway you want. Yes, that's the way. He nodded at the Cyberman, hoping they'd realise what nonsense he was talking. Mind you, I also had to link up to the TARDIS console. Show you ways to boost the power. Power is available here. Not enough. Not nearly enough. You don't use hamsters, by the way, do you? He raised the question aside. Never mind. Not important. Now, I have to use heavy-duty cables. Lots of them. It's a big job. We haven't got much time. I suppose you realise the army is on its way here to attack you. They will not succeed, said the Cyber Leader. He pointed to the complex piece of equipment standing aside from the rest. It was throbbing with power. We've established a force field around the dome. Let's hope it holds, said the Doctor, shooting Martha a meaningful look. I'd hate that to go wrong to get damaged or anything. Right then, let's get started. We will assist you. The Cyber Leader turned to the third Cyberman. You will continue to guard the girl. At any first sign of treachery, kill her. Chapter 16. The gateway opens. The Assault Force command truck was parked outside the main gates of Millennium Dome. Floodlights lit the whole area. Captain Sargent stood outside the truck, waiting impatiently. Beside her was Colonel Barnard, a small 10-year-old man with a blistering white moustache. He had fought the Cybermen, although not very successfully. During the invasion, he was itching for another challenge at them. How much longer? He snarled. Best to secure the perimeter, sir, said Sheila Sergeant smoothly. We don't want to lose him now. A tall young lieutenant ran up and saluted him. Perimeter secured, sir. Good, he snapped Colonel Barnard. Order General advance. Can't, sir, said the lieutenant. What do you mean, can't? Can't move forward, sir, not at any point. What perimeter? There's some kind of force field around the whole place. It pushes back men and vehicles, and then break through it. The vehicle block's not working on it, sir. They're sending for some kind of explosive. They're sending... It would take back a really massive explosion, big enough to destroy the whole place. Good riddance, said Colonel Barnard. Damn, place was no use for it anyway. bit hard on the Doctor. If he was here. The Doctor meant his companion, though Sheila still. Sacrifice had to be made in war. Right, said the Doctor. That's it! Stand back, everybody. A spiderweb of power cables ran from the TARDIS console, and through the open door they connected the console to the teleportation equipment. I'll just go into the TARDIS and power it up, said the Doctor. The gateway to the void will appear at the teleportation point. You fellow Cyber will know when it's opening, and very soon they'll start coming through. The Doctor headed for the open TARDIS door, stepping over the cables. We still have your associate, warned the Cyber leader. You will leave the TARDIS once the power is on. Oh, don't worry, said the Doctor. I would have missed this for the worlds. He entered the TARDIS, went to the console and pulled a huge lever. Teleportation equipment began throbbing with power. The Doctor emerged and stood waiting with the Cybermen. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, a glowing portal appeared in the air, and it was the size and shape of the TARDIS door, faint and shadowy at first. It grew larger, brighter, and soon it was huge and cavernous. Pale blue light blazed from inside. The Cybermen stared at what looked like awe. Even with the one guarding, Martha seizing her chance, he leaped away, dashed to the force field generator and kicked it. Again and again, it fizzed and crackled, and Martha yanked out a cable from the side, sending a shower of sparks. Her Cyberman guard raised his arm and fired. Martha threw herself sideways just in time. The energy blast missed her and struck the force field generator, exploding into flames. She scrambled to her feet and ducked behind the crate. The cyber engineer turned from the glowing doorway and studied the energy readings on the teleportation dials. We have been cheated, he decided. This gateway does not lead to the void. The cyber leader trained his wrists on the Doctor. Where's the gateway lead? It leads to the void, I tell you, shouted the Doctor. Your readings won't be accurate, will they? You're trying to get a reading from nothing. That's what the void means. He turned towards the glowing gateway and pointed. Look, they're coming through. Something was indeed coming through the gateway, but it wasn't a Cyberman. It was a colossal head, jaws full of sharp teeth, snapping and biting at the air as a massive creature tried to force its way through an opening. The Tyrannosaurus Rex. The cyber engineer fired at it, and the energy blast hammered into the dinosaur's head. It gave a tremendous roar of rage. Roar! It lunged toward the cyber engineer. Huge claws closed around the Cyberman, ripping his head off. The second Cyberman fired, but again to no effect. Enraged, the giant T-Rex snatched the Cyberman and dragged its thrashing body back through the glowing gateway. You have betrayed us, Doctor, cried the Cyber leader. He raised his weapon and fired, but the Doctor ducked beneath the blast. In a single rapid movement, he wrenched free the main power cable and thrust it into the Cyber leader's chest. There was a fierce crackle of power and sparks flowed through the Cyber leader's body. His eyes glowed red and smoke poured from his mouth. Spinning round, he crashed to the ground. Martha slowly emerged from behind her crate. Well done, Doctor. She turned to look at the glowing gateway as she saw it disappeared. It had vanished. When the Doctor disconnected the power cable. Where did that thing come from? The Doctor had freed the other end of the power cable from the TARDIS console and dragged it clear. Now he was unplugging the rest of the cables harder and round the other side of the door. Just a simple space-time portal, he said. Used to muck around with them in school. I connected the teleportation setup to the TARDIS at the exact point in time and space where we last landed. You remember our little field trip? Tommy T-Rex lunged to the TARDIS, and at the same time we left, the gateway opened and let him get his Cybermen. Dr. Dick's points, Team Cybermen, no points. What happened to the Cybermen the creature dragged off? I imagine it might be pretty hard to digest. T-Rex would probably drop bits all around the Jurassic period. He grinned. Gotta give the archaeologist guessing. The doctor freed the last cable and went to the TARDIS door. "Come on, Martha. Time to go out of here." "Not so fast, Doctor," called a familiar voice. "Sure you're not leaving without saying goodbye?" Captain Sheila Sarandon came running into the dome. Armed soldiers behind her, confused and cautious. The soldiers covered the doctor and Martha with their rifles. "Ah, there you are," said the doctor. "Glad you could join us at last." He pointed to a giant silver shape on the ground. "And there's the last Cyberman on Earth for you, stone cold dead. You can have it stuffed and put it in a mess, or I can melt it down for you for rich and even more silver." Sheila Sarandon looked thoughtfully at him. "My superiors are interested in you, Doctor. They want you arrested and shipped off to them." The doctor sighed. "You're not going to be difficult, are you? I do hope you're not going to be difficult. I've had enough unpleasantness for one day already. I much prefer being unpleasant." "Well, more pleasant, don't you?" He smiled. She smiled too. She was expecting a promotion out of all of this. She was in a very good mood. "All right, Doctor, we owe you this one. Off you go. But don't hurry back." "Well, of course, all the ingratitude," said Martha indignantly. The doctor grinned and blew Sheila a kiss, then pulled Martha inside. The door closed behind them. Sheila Sarandon turned to her soldiers. "Watch closely. You're not going to believe this." The strange wheezing, groaning sound of the TARDIS faded away. Inside, the doctor adjusted controls and checked readouts. Martha was mostly shattered and completely exhausted. The doctor in Japan seemed quite unaffected by the recent adventures. "Where now then, and when?" he asked, flexing his fingers ready to set a new course. Martha sighed and leaned towards the console. "I don't know, Doctor. Someone nice and peaceful? You choose." The doctor beamed. "I know just the place." His hands moved over the console.